In today's video we are going to be making this snow shader in Blender, so let's just get started. First delete the default scene and add an icosphere. Set the subdivisions to something like 5 and then shade this smooth. Go into rendered mode, make sure you're on cycles and also just disable the scene world so you get some default lighting going on. Then open up the shader editor, add in a new shader, call this snow. What we want to do then is just add in a noise texture. If you preview this noise texture by pressing Ctrl, Shift and left mouse button, we can preview it on the sphere here. And we can just set the detail to 15, the roughness to something like 0.8, and maybe the linearity to 3 or something, but 2 is fine as well. 3 just adds a little bit more of that, snowy feeling. We can then put this into a bump map, into the height and then normal to the normal. And if we just preview the BSDF, you will see this, which already looks a little bit like snow, which is nice. We can then just change the base color to white. You can change that later. Then for the roughness, we can just grab this noise texture, add in a map range node. And then we can set the from min to 0.5. That just gives us a little bit more rough spots instead of the 0 here. And then the 2 max to whatever you want your roughness to be. And then you can change the 2 min for like the global roughness. Alright, so put that into your roughness and it should be a little bit more shiny now. Alright, now we can add in a displacement node. Then we can connect this up, go over to the end panel, options, and set this to displacement and bump. Then add in a modifier. Before we do that, just make sure your feature set is set to experimental. And then we can just keep the settings default and put it into the height here. And this will do something like this. Maybe even scale it down a little bit, just so it looks a little bit lumpier like this. And that can be our displacement. Just set the scale to something pretty small, like 0.1. And that just adds in a little bit of detail. Another thing we need to adjust is the IOR. This is set to 1.5, which I believe is default for like plastic or glass. But we need to set it to ice, which is 1.31. And this adds a really tiny bit of realism under certain lighting conditions. So I think it's always good to add. To make this a little more realistic, we can also add in some subsurface scattering. And then make sure you set this radius to all 1, which will be white. Otherwise, it will be skinned by default. And yeah, you can just increase that a little bit. It does take a lot longer to render. So this is without. Looks really flat and unrealistic. And then with looks like it has a lot of volume. So it does add a lot. And then what you might want to play with is the transmission as well. Just keeping it really subtle, like 0.1. Makes it a little bit more transparent as well. This is not necessary, but you could do this if you want. Alright, and that is pretty much it for the snow. We can add in a little bit of a dirt mask if you want. So I'm just going to show you how I do that, but it's not really necessary at all. So for a dirt texture, just add in a noise texture. And then set the roughness to like 0.9 and then the detail to 15. And that should be fine. Then add in a map range node. And then we can just play with this from min and kind of decrease or increase the dirt amount. So let's say I want to set this at 1, which adds in no dirt at all. We can just add in a mix shader. And then just add in a diffuse BSDF. Set this to 1 roughness and then a black color. Mix that into the shader. And this can be our dirt. Switch it around like this, and then we can just play with this value in order to add in a little bit of subtle dirt to the snow, which can add in a little bit of realism. Alright, so that will be our snow for today. And now we can just group everything together and place it into a node group that we want to use. So select everything, Ctrl G, and then just connect all of these scales, for example. And yeah, just do that with everything you want to change. Don't forget things like the subsurface that are hidden or the transmission, and just put that into a node group. And once you've done that, it might look something like this. Really nice and organized. And then here is my snow. And if we go back into the node graph, you will see all of the controls you have here. So the dirt amount, the detail, the scale, the roughness, the normal, all of those things. I just added everything I talked about in this video. I added in here. All right, so that is the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.